Welcome, everybody, to the second episode of Bound for Impact here on World Championship Wreckage's YouTube channel. As always, I am your friendly neighborhood dad hat wearing wrestling fan, joined by my side on this journey through TNA and Impact Wrestling history. You know him, you love him, my bearded brethren, Rishi Mars. What's going on, Rishi?
Nothing much. How we doing, Dad Hat? We're doing well. I can't wait to go back into the Impact Zone and talk about a new topic, because last time we talked about Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe and their fantastic feud, and now we're talking about one of the fantastic tag teams that were one of the pillars of the AEW tag team scene, and that being AMW, Chris Harris and James Storm.
Absolutely, America's Most Wanted. We will probably touch on this, but for being, like you said, a pillar, that's a great way. I mean, it was, AEW brought up pillars early on in their life. America's Most Wanted was definitely that tag team pillar of TNA Wrestling. Like, it's still weird to me to go back and watch and see James Storm with no beard. It's so strange. And young James Storm, but this is not just a James Storm episode. I'm sure we will do a James Storm episode because Cowboy James Storm has a lot of content and history in TNA after AMW.
Yeah, so, not only in the singles ranks, but also another historic tag team too.
Exactly, which is funny because I knew and I'd seen a lot about Beer Money before going back through this journey of rewatching TNA from the very beginning. I'm going to be bold and say this. I think I like AMW more than I like Beer Money.
I think more as a cohesive unit. I think AMW is better in that aspect when it comes to Beer Money, because with Beer Money, it was one of those teams that were just thrown together because, hey, there's two singles guys, which were funny because they broke up because of their tag teams breaking up. Bobby Roode, Team Canada, James Storm being AMW, and then they just kind of like clicked together. But what's different here is like you could see like the evolution of this partnership, because before AMW was actually a thing, Chris Harris, James Storm were just rivals together. They would have tag team matches like before AMW, or matches against each other, before AMW, and TNA decided to put them together. They saw the good chemistry that they've had together as opponents, and then sometimes that translates well into partners. We've seen it with New Age Outlaws. I think to a certain degree they did it with
the Dudleys.
Dudleys as well, and I'm not sure if the Acclaimed did that, but I know they were kind of like put together before, like they weren't a team before going to AEW. So it's like sometimes it's like you can't practice chemistry with each other, and it's like you either have it or you don't. And I feel like as a cohesive unit, as like a traditional tag team, I'd put AMW over Beer Money. Entertainment factor, you might lean the other way with Beer Money just because of the dynamic personalities. But as a cohesive unit, I think a cornerstone of TNA, especially in the tag team scene, was AMW.
Absolutely. I know for sure Chris Harris. I don't know for sure about James Storm, but I know Chris Harris was in WCW at that tail end.
Yes. So, James Storm might have made an appearance or two.
Yeah.
But Chris Harris was mostly like still in that Tennessee area. Same thing with James Storm. But Chris Harris was, like you said, at the tail end, much like AJ Styles was. And who knows what could have happened, and if WCW would have continued on. But with Chris Harris, I think a lot of people saw him as more as the breakout star of the tag team, because unfortunately that's what happens when you're a tag team. And thanks to the Rockers, it's like, which one's the Jannetty? Everyone likes to go for the Jannetty, but sometimes it's the ones that you don't think. There's very rare that there are tag teams where it's like one you expect to be the Shawn Michaels turns out to be, unfortunately, the Jannetty. And I feel like with AMW, it was that palette swap after the fact.
Yeah, like we'll get into it a little bit because like there's a time period while they're still a tag team where Chris Harris gets a singles push for the world title. But I mean, because of AMW and having not really seen a lot of Chris Harris, I became a huge Chris Harris fan. Like watching this, like really I remember, good. I remember texting our buddy Mike Duplessis and being like, "Okay, Mr. Wrestling Encyclopedia, like why the hell was Chris Harris never like I know he got to WWE, but why was he not a bigger deal? Like run me through some stuff that I clearly don't know. But damn, Chris Harris was good on the mic, in the ring, tag, singles. Like that man should have been a breakout star in WWE.
Absolutely. I think it was one of those things where it's like, sometimes you get a couple bad breaks.
Mm-hmm.
He was presented as somebody that he wasn't in TNA. I
Mm-hmm.
know he did gain some weight,
He did.
when he made that transition, when he made that jump. And at the time period, people got to understand somebody coming from TNA to WWE was unheard of at the time. There was like
Mm-hmm.
a strict no hiring TNA
Yeah,
independent policy for the longest time. And Chris Harris is just one of the guys that unfortunately got like stuck in that kind of limbo where it's just like you want to see more for him. And there were a lot more expectations in Chris Harris than James Storm at that time period as well. So a lot
mm-hmm.
of people were thinking the size, the in-ring ability of Chris Harris, and they're like, oh, it's just a matter of time because I think Chris Harris is a little bit taller. He was a little bit more, I guess, better size is a way to put it compared the two early on. But honestly, Chris Harris leaving TNA was the best thing that happened in James Storm.
Absolutely. It made
And
him a name single star.
mhm. And with James Storm, he would take some silly stuff like remember again, this is more after AMW, but he had like the beer drinking championship, which was just basically the
The
spinner belt
spinner
with,
belt
with, with the beer bottle in the
and
middle.
Eric Young. Yep.
Yeah, so it's like taking opportunities like that and making the most of them. It's what made James Storm like right here, and Chris Harris, even though he was in WWE, they didn't do much with him
Mm-hmm.
and to differentiate himself from like where he was previously. Like he was the Wildcat, but when you go
Yeah.
to WWE, it was pretty much he was stripped down to just being a guy in the singlet. Defeated Armando Estrada that one time. Somebody made that awesome YouTube video of his 3-disc Hall of Fame career.
Yeah.
He became a meme, and yeah, but the Chris Harris prior to all that was earmarked for very much like success. Like you said previously, like he got like a world title push, like as a contender.
In a King of a Mountain match, like
Yeah, so it's like there were a lot of people who were thinking, oh, it's not a matter of if but when with
yeah,
Chris Harris, but I feel like as we're going through different episodes of Bound for Impact, we're going to see a lot of people that we thought were earmarked for
yeah.
great stuff, and then unfortunately, that doesn't really turn out.
You are reading my mind. Like I was on the drive back home before I was just thinking about the episode and different things, and I wanted to say like throughout TNA history, we were going to see people like the big thing in NXT right now that you're hearing a lot on every episode is Tony fumbled,
Hmm.
like in terms of Ricky Starks or Ricky Saints now, and
Yeah,
All Ego, Ethan Page, and everything.
like I
But
don't even think.
there's some fumbles with TNA talent, a lot of them where they're building them and building them and building them, and then it's just womp womp.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like with Ricky Saints, I don't even think Tony fumbled Ricky Saints. I think he, like Ricky Saints, could have absolutely been portrayed a lot better and had a
Mm-hmm.
lot more. Like there was still a lot of gas in the tank for
Oh
him
yeah,
being a major player, but it's like former tag champion, Owen Hart Cup winner, defeated CM Punk, tag team champion, FTW champion, like he got like a fair like he was featured. He was featured,
yeah,
probably not as much as he should have been, but I think the difference between fumbled and not making the most out of the opportunity are two completely different things. And with
yeah. I agree.
TNA, like you could see like there were people that were gaining traction that were
Yeah,
fumbled later down the
it's
line.
like we're gonna throw you a soft, underhanded softball. Like here you go, we're just gonna love it to you. Like and
Like the big one for me is Monty Brown. Like that's probably the biggest like fumble I think TNA ever had.
uh, oh, when we get to a Monty Brown episode.
I'm looking forward to it. But
Oh, how many times can we say the word pounce in an episode?
period.
No,
but
we'll keep a tracker on that episode.
yeah.
But again, we mentioned pillars for AMW. I
Mhm.
mean, pillar is correct because, like, just looking at my notes here, they debuted back all the way back when TNA was doing their weekly pay-per-views.
Mhm.
Like on pay-per-view number 2 in a dark match. But they officially made their debut on pay-per-view number 3, where they defeated tag team that a lot of people probably won't even remember, the Rainbow Express, in a tag team tournament match. That was all the way back in 2002, 23 years ago. Again, clean shaven James Storm, and you get a little backstage. I mean, they're building these different wrestlers because they're building this company, so you get a little bit of backstory on them about them being rivals and them not liking each other, but they got thrown together and they found that chemistry. So they're building that foundation about how they came together, which I thought was great. I was like, cool. It's not just, oh, here's a tag team. Okay, why are they together? How are they together? TNA got them a story without us actually seeing that story.
Yeah, and it's a breath of fresh air when it comes to that, because a lot of teams will see thrown together, and there's not really a storyline of why. It's either like, oh, it's like we're a team because that's what we want to be. We just want to be a team, and it's usually like people are palette swaps of each other, where it's like they'll dress the same, but you don't know which one's which or which one has like a more dynamic personality, etc. With this story of AMW coming together, it really did show that it's like, look, it's like these guys aren't a traditional team in terms of like, oh, we were lifelong friends and being tag team champions were the goal. It was much similar to the New Age Outlaws, where it's like we kept fighting, but at the same time, it's like we found out we have tremendous chemistry together. So why not pivot towards the tag ranks and take over there? Kind of like use our skill set that way. It's like we're spending all this time beating each other and not really getting anywhere in the solo ranks, but let's combine together our forces and then let's dominate the tag team scene.
And dominate they do. I mean, 6-time TNA World Tag Team Champion. 6 times. Like,
yeah.
And it's not like they're necessarily beating, like, yes, there's some times where you're looking, like I'm looking through my notes about like who they defeated and you're like, but when you really go back and look at like the teams that they beat to win titles, like I'm just gonna throw out these names as we'll touch a little bit more about the major feuds, but like for these 6 title wins, they defeat the Hot Shots and the New Church. So that's Brian Lee and Slash. Brian Lee is a name that is synonymous. I mean, one of the Undertaker's best friends, like R.I.P. Brian Lee. Like, they defeated Triple X, Christopher Daniels, and Elix Skipper, and that is in my opinion, to this day, one of the best matches in TNA history is that 6 Sides of Steel match with Triple X and America's Most Wanted.
Shame they didn't really keep up the stipulation though, which is always tough, because the stipulation one was loser breaks up, or the losers have to break up as a tag team forever, and forever in wrestling usually is a very liberal use of the term forever. But it's one of those things where it's like you have guys who have been in the business forever, prior to TNA. It's like Elix Skipper and Christopher Daniels, who were kind of in that tail end of WCW as well, and like legends on the independent scene. And you have the younger generation being Chris Harris and James Storm, and you just have this indescribable chemistry with each other, and it helped evolve them to that next level where it's like, okay, they're just not like a team featured on TNA, they're the featured TNA tag team.
Yeah, that cage match, I mean, let's talk about it while we're here. Like, that cage match, it added a toughness to them. That was a brutal cage match. Of course, you get the legendary, the Hurricane Rana from the top of this cage from Elix Skipper, like the thing that is probably still used in TNA packages to this day because of how insane it was. It was bloody, it was brutal, and I mean, damn, I love a 6 Sides of Steel cage match. I like a 6 Sides of Steel cage match better than I like a regular cage match.
I think it's because like with 6 sides, it's like since you have that extra 2 sides in there, like when you see someone get hit in the cage, you like feel it a little bit more where it doesn't like bounce off it. It's just like stays there.
It's firm.
And if I remember correctly, the finish was like the death sentence, which is the AMW tag move.
Yeah, somebody had I think it was.
I think they had Daniels, if I remember.
Somebody was handcuffed to the rope, and then they hit the other one. Yeah.
And then I think they came off the top of the cage with that one too. So it's like in like as a finishing move, the death sentence for Triple X. It just kind of made that like exclamation more for that just for that match in general, and it made a vetted turning point that year, I believe.
Hmm.
Just because it really did put a stamp on tag team wrestling at that point, where it's just like, hey, we're not only solidifying these guys as tag team wrestlers, we think they're so good, we're gonna let them close the show, and also just add to the legacy and the lore of AMW,
Hmm.
and just dismantling a team like Triple X, which Triple X, as the group was, they had moderate success, but it wasn't
And it
like,
came and went too, because for a while, Low
yeah.
Key was gone for a while, and
Mhm.
then he came back as I forget the
Caval.
it's or
No, Caval,
Henshay,
Senshi, yeah.
Senshi.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, they weren't really. I mean, they were Triple X, but there's two of them for a while, and then and then Daniels got the Feast or Fire and got fired. Like it's
Yeah,
yeah,
there were attempts to reunite, with each other, and I think it was like they only split up for about 3 years. But it's like that old "we have nothing for you, we're gonna throw you together." But with AMW, it really did like catapult them to like, all right, we're gonna like feature them as our cornerstone of the tag division.
yeah. And somebody as we're going through their wins. So after, I mean, besides beating Triple X, next they defeated Simon Diamond and Johnny Swinger. Okay,
Hmm.
nothing to necessarily write home about that. They regained their titles from them after a brief loss. Um, they won their fifth reign from beating Team Canada's Bobby Roode and Eric Young.
Hmm.
I'm excited to do a Team Canada episode one day.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Um, and then their last title run was in 2006, but a team that I was I grew to really like, and part of it had to do with Shane Douglas, but not really. Like, I really enjoyed the Naturals, Chase Stevens and Andy Douglas. Like,
I really like the Naturals.
and then they just kind of disappear. Like
Yeah,
where I am right now, I'm like, where'd you go?
it's one of those teams that kind of like came and went, like to the flash of the night, because
Mhm.
they had a lot of success early on. I believe
And
they,
featured so much.
yeah, especially in TNA. Like I believe they were in like 2004, 2005 to start off,
Mhm.
and they were managed by Jimmy Hart. I think they were managed by Chris
Yeah.
Candido,
Yes, they
and
were with Candido, and
yeah,
then
for a little,
Shane Douglas took them after Candido's death.
yeah, and it's just like as wrestlers, I really enjoyed them. Like I remember, like their finisher move was like the double like I guess stun gun is what
Hmm.
you call it. So it's
Hmm.
just like well, which I called natural selection before Charlotte. But
Oh yeah,
it's one of those teams where it's like I mentioned before, it's like you don't really know who's who for a little bit.
yeah.
And as a result, it's like you kind of get lost of time, and because of that, they try to reinvent them many times with different managers.
Hmm.
And but for the brief moment where they were, a part of the TNA tag division, especially as champions, and they were responsible for that kickoff of AMW as heels, I think they were tremendously important to the lore of AMW. And I wish they would have gotten more of an opportunity, but at that time period, I think they were shifting more towards character based wrestlers in TNA, and unfortunately wasn't like a wrestler kind of
Yeah,
like tag team. You had to have like a character, and that's during that time when they started fading out. We got LAX, we got uh I think AJ and Daniels just started teaming
yeah,
together at that point too. So you got Motor City that was newly formed. So you had like a lot of different things that were happening in the tag team division, and unfortunately, the Naturals just kind of got lost in the
yeah.
shuffle.
They did, and then it just kind of disappeared, at least from
Hmm.
TNA. So with AMW, kind of their history. So we spend 2002 to 2003. I mean, it's their rise as a baby face.
Hmm.
I mean, it's them starting to gain traction and being the tag team of TNA. Um, 2004 is more of a transition year.
Hmm.
That's kind of when they're having those. I mean, definitely like a mid card kind of feud, like with the
Hmm.
Simon Diamonds and Johnny Swingers. Uh, Kid Cash and Lance Archer.
Hmm.
AKA Dallas.
Hmm.
Um, which I'm gonna throw this at you. I remember saying this to again Mike Duplessis, because he and I are always talking about different things. Kid Cash
Mhm.
and Dallas. Kid Cash is the trailer park version of Shawn Michaels.
uh, I could see it. I
Yeah,
could see it a little bit.
and then using Dallas as a as a very bad version of Diesel.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I like Lance Archer too.
I did, but I mean,
Yeah,
but the Dallas character. I mean,
yeah. The Dallas
he
character was.
like Lance Archer now. I mean, put on muscles. He's gotten older and everything, but he was a string bean. Like,
I always
just,
thought like Kid Cash was more like if Jerry Lynn turned the corner to Albuquerque. You know what I mean? Where
mhm.
it's like you're just kind of like similar styles, and I feel like Kid Cash was like that transition between like RVD and Jerry Lynn, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
Where it's like if you had like a Pokemon evolution scale,
yeah.
like you had like all of them to go to the final form of Rob Van Dam.
I enjoyed Kid Cash. He was a good heel. He was a very,
Yeah,
very,
I
very good
thought
heel.
like his WWE run was really like short.
Yeah.
Like I think he could have been. Apparently, he took the fall for doing something that was frowned upon back then. But neither here nor there.
We get to 2005. I mean, that's kind of like again, TNA. It's very featured, like not disappear, but not as featured. Featured, not as featured, and that's kind of the history. I mean, with AMW at times too. Like,
And that's the thing with having an hour TV show.
yeah,
You're only going to be featured so much if you're not in a consistent storyline, and you still
mhm.
have to rotate talent within that hour time. Where you still have to have, the tag feud. You had to have the X Division feud. You had to have the
Main event.
main event feud, which again was a lot of Jeff Jarrett. Not saying it was good or bad, but there was a lot of Jeff Jarrett,
Yeah,
and which is apropos because once AMW they do the switch,
that's
that's
where I was
when
going next. Yeah,
yeah.
2006. They align the heel turn because I mean the 2005. That's when they get. I mean the feud with Team Canada
Mhm.
is fantastic. I mean that feud is great, and I mean it's old school wrestling storyline. You
Mhm.
especially in the states, you get the American heroes
Mhm.
versus another country. And usually, I mean WWE is very historically, we're gonna go after someone like that's featured more in the Middle East. Well, you know what? We're going to the neighbors to the north. We're going against Team Canada.
Right.
Um, but their rivalry in 2005 is fantastic. Like
Mhm.
you got Demore, who is that mouthpiece for all of them, and you got talent that can back it up. The Rudes, the Eric Youngs, the PD Williams, like uh, A1, who I think I saw he wrestled 2 matches in the entire time he was with them.
Yeah, I do remember A1. I was disappointed to find out he wasn't the steak sauce, but
Yeah,
it's either neither here nor there. But with Team Canada, like it's not the first time a wrestling promotion tried to do Team Canada.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's
We had the Hart
easy.
Foundation. I mean, that was like the original Team Canada.
Yeah, yeah. The Hart Foundation. You had WCW had Team Canada too, led by
Oh yeah,
Lance Storm. Just a lot of Team Canada. Plus, you have Scott Demore as the anchor of that entire
yeah.
thing. So it's like it was gonna work no matter what. You had the tag team and Eric Young and Bobby Roode.
Demore's talent is God. He's a good talent. Like
He's 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 very great. And if you ever seen him in the later years of TNA where he was like
mhm.
more total control, like it's proof positive. Like he knew what he was doing.
2006, big year. You started with it, but we get a heel turn. We get a heel turn, and I did not expect this. But who do they align themselves with?
Hmm.
Jeff Jarrett.
Hmm.
To the stable is Planet Jarrett, and to this day, I'm still like, damn, Planet Jarrett. If I had to hear him say one more time about everything revolving around Planet Jarrett, I was gonna throw something at my TV.
Yeah, it was a dark time, but was interesting about this championship change because they helped Jeff Jarrett win the NWA World Title from Raven.
Yeah,
But the story was at the time they wanted Jarrett to have the championship before they get to Spike. So I believe it was in somewhere in Canada. I think it was Windsor, Ontario. Like it was a house show, and AMW cost Raven the world
Yeah,
title, and then
yeah,
after that they turned heel. And how do you turn heel? You bloody up the Naturals, and that's what they did to win their
yeah.
final set of tag team titles.
Yeah, it, they were definitely like that enforcer for that group
Mhm.
for Planet Jarrett. But it was just so weird because like they're in suits,
Mhm.
like it's so not what America's Most Wanted was, like with their dusters and the handcuffs and
Mhm.
James Storm with a beer and his cowboy hat, and it very much was. I mean, you know what's going to make somebody a heel? Throw them in a suit. Like that's very
It,
much what it was.
it also, even though we like the rag on Planet Jared, it also gave them the opportunity to emphasize more of Chris Harris as the no nonsense one, and James Storm as more of the comedic one of the two.
Mhm.
And that's where the two personalities kind of divulged
Yeah.
from there. They had a lot of good segments, and I think adding Gail Kim also added to their
Yes.
presentation as well, because
Yes.
Gail Kim is one of the best women's wrestlers, not only in like her time period, just overall in general.
Mhm.
And having her as kind of the valet slash manager to enhance AMW's credibility was a great move on TNA's part.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, we get a we get a I mean, it's even back then it was probably considered a dream match because they are again the tag team pillar of TNA.
Mhm.
And who do they face? The most decorated tag team of all time. They
Mhm.
face the Dudleys,
Mhm.
or Team 3D, as they're called in TNA, who are coming in to TNA. I will say Impact Wrestling, but they're not Impact yet. TNA Wrestling, and I mean, why not? You got the most decorated tag team. Of course, you're going to throw them with the tag team that's been like the measuring stick for tag teams in that company.
I do have like something grind my gears while watching the Team 3D and AMW feud, because I remember their first match was like a tables match, right?
I think so. Yeah.
The titles weren't on the line for that one.
Mm-mm.
So I'm just like, I don't like it when it's like we're building up this pay-per-view match, big stipulation match, titles aren't on the line.
Yeah.
So right then and there, that kind of like gives away
Yeah.
like
Who's going to win?
what the finish is, because you want to build up to the next match, which is going to be for the tag titles. And it's just one of those things where it's like I don't like when wrestling does that, just because it's like, oh, it's a 9 title, what's gonna happen? Usually when that happens in a very big promoted match like that one, it was going to end up like that. But it like I'm not gonna say it made sense for the story, because it was the first episode of Impact. That's where Team 3D debuted, and then the next week I believe they just left them busted open and bloodied,
Yeah.
and that gave more of an edge for America's Most Wanted. So it
Yeah.
was a tremendously good angle for them. Just like the little hiccup of the tables match is where
Yeah.
I was like, like didn't need to go there, but I guess they wanted to have the Team 3D have their win, and then build to that tag title match down the
Yeah.
line.
And they're being featured in like main event things, even in the stable. Like we talked about. There's some time even as a tag team where Chris Harris was getting that main event push and like being in a main event type of match, like a King of the Mountain match.
Mhm.
They're part of Lethal Lockdown, which is a major match in this time frame of TNA. It's Planet Jarrett against Team 3D and Rhino and Sting and everything. And I mean, that's a big spot. Look, I mean, let's see. Sting, Hall of Famer. Rhino, Hall of Famer. Team 3D, Hall of Famers twice.
Mhm.
Like Jeff Jarrett, Hall of Famer. I mean, they're not in there with, nobodies.
Mhm.
So they're being in these big matches and being featured well.
Mhm. So that only leads to one more logical conclusion: is after they're in this faction for a while, you're building up Jeff Jarrett, you're building up who they're going to drop the championships to, which is AJ and Christopher Daniels, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And you're building up to that moment, and you're building up to these guys, and as they're being portrayed within Planet Jared, you're like, all right, it's like they've been on this dominant tag run, and their last run, I believe, was their longest run as well, which is
Yes.
pretty
Yes.
funny considering it
350.
was it was their only reign as heels, I
Yeah.
believe, while the rest were baby faces.
Yeah.
and it just showed how well TNA wanted to build them. But right after that championship run, where do you kind of go from there? Because it was almost like during that time period, they were kind of portraying LAX,
That's
Homicide and
the next
Hernandez,
big one.
as the next like tag team they want to kind of pivot towards. And as a result, like you said, like right after that, it's just like, it's that start and stop kind of feature where it's like, all right, we're here and then we're here. And because of that, it just kind of seemed like right after Jarrett lost to Sting, like
Yeah.
Planet Jarrett just kind of like
Yeah.
kind of like faded.
Well, late 2006 into 2007, 2007. I mean, that's when we start to kind of get the dissension and eventually the split.
Mhm.
Tensions building throughout 2006. James Storm you were starting to see a little bit more arrogance, a little bit more, just a little bit more cockiness from him.
Mhm.
December 4th, 2006, the very end of 2006. It's their last tag team match together, and they lose to Team 3D.
Mhm.
And after that, the heel turn comes from James Storm, which I think works because I liked Storm I mean, at least with these two, I mean, I like Storm as the heel more than I think I would have liked Chris Harris to be the heel. But of
Yeah.
course, beer bottle over the head to the eye. Gail Kim's all concerned.
Mhm. And it just kind of made sense with how their tag team was since the beginning too, because everyone earmarked Chris Harris as the one to have the breakout singles career after AMW.
Yes.
And there was even a storyline prior where James Storm was growing weary of Chris Harris possibly joining Sports Entertainment Extreme, that entire
Oh
faction.
yeah.
So it makes sense for James Storm, at least character wise, throughout this whole thing, to be the one to uh, be the deciding factor in splitting up the team. And of
Hmm.
course, with the trademark beer bottle that became so engrossed with his character from then on
Oh yeah.
out,
Oh yeah.
and he just turned up his personality to 11, and that was the best thing for him. Unfortunately, with Chris Harris, that kind of left him, at least character wise, like you can't just be like, it's like there's very few times where a character or a wrestler keeps the same gimmick from a tag team and
Hmm.
then is successful. I think Jeff Hardy is the only one that comes to mind
Yeah.
where it's like, all right, he took the Hardy Boys like like character and turned it up to 11 from there. With Chris Harris, like he would still like come out with like the handcuffs and stuff like
And
that.
the
But it's like,
duster and like
yeah,
yeah. I mean
like very minimal changes, but it's like not enough where it's like, all right, what else
yeah.
does he have?
Yeah.
It's like you have other people who kept like the same like character from a tag team, but uh usually it doesn't work long term. Like you had Edge when he was a baby face, like that worked for a little bit, like coming out from the crowd or just like coming out like
Hmm.
the You Think You Know Me, the same gear pretty much. But after a while, the fans started to turn on him. We saw what happened with Roman Reigns, where he just adopted everything about the Shield
Yeah.
about him, and they tried to like
Music,
portray him. Yeah, the
I
music,
mean,
the
gear,
entrance,
everything,
like
everything.
everything, and it's like the fans didn't buy it because it's like, all right, we saw this. What else do you have?
Yeah.
With Chris Harris, he didn't get like a visceral like negative reaction. It was
No.
just more apathetic, where it was like, all right, what else? Like, who is Chris Harris without James Storm?
Yeah.
And
And I
I
mean,
don't think we've
they kept him off TV for a while, like
yeah,
after
they were
that
selling the
chair shot.
injury. I think it was something like he only had like 30% of his vision or
Yeah.
something.
Gail
And
Kim, even though she didn't want to, was still coming to the ring with James Storm.
mhm. Yeah, and it was a very good story. It was a very good breakup story. But with all good breakup stories, sometimes when it comes to tag team conflicts, it is an easy way to make a feud. But at the same time, it's if people are going to buy the people, like the guys actually hating each other.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing with tag team breakup stories. It's like they have like a great success rate. You have the Rockers, you have the Shield, you have trying to think of other tag teams that broke up in my mind. The Hardys,
Yeah.
you have all those kind of things. But at the same time, like when you get to the actual matches, are they going to care about them individually, not just the team
Hmm.
taken away? Because like when you break up a team in wrestling for the audience, you're taking something away from them. You're taking away this act that they grew emotionally attached to. But are they
Yeah,
emotionally attached to the individuals involved? That's the big question when it comes to breakup storylines.
yeah. And I mean, we get something that is it's not the norm in wrestling really here. So I mean, it culminates in a Texas death match, and I recommend anybody to go back and watch this if they haven't. It's Sacrifice 2007
Mm.
Texas death match. James Storm, and he defeats Chris Harris. So the heel who caused the breakup
I
doesn't get
believe
his comeuppance.
I thought Chris Harris won the Texas one and James Storm won the steel cage like blindfold match. Or do I have that backwards? Same thing on Lockdown. They had like that blindfold cage match that Storm
I'm
won,
gonna refer to my notes.
and then I think
My laundry's ready.
oh nice, yeah, there we go.
That thing can wake the dead. Let's see. You're right. Chris Harris. Sorry, my notes were wrong. Chris Harris defeated James Storm.
Mhm.
My notes. I just typed it in wrong.
Yeah, because I remember the big thing, the big talking point at that time period watching TNA was their blindfold six sided steel match was terribly received. Like the blindfolds kept
Yeah.
falling off. Like it was brutal. Like having a blindfold match in wrestling is already brutal enough, but
Yeah.
not only the blindfolds like kept dropping and just like screwing up the timing of the match, but it's like again, it's this blood feud, and you're gonna put the first match not just like a cage match, which would have been fine, but you're gonna add the blindfold match just because James Storm had the
Eye patch.
the eye patch kind of thing. It's like I
Yep.
would just like if I was booking, which God forbid if anyone gives me that power.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah, like you could just have the storyline with the the eye patch, and just working around the eye.
Yeah.
And then the finish could have been like James Storm like going for the eye, and that's how he won. But I think they wanted more chicanery involved. I think they wanted to protect Chris Harris because again, Chris Harris was more of the future between the two at that time, where they
Mm-hmm.
want to see him in that solo capacity. And then when you get the Sacrifice, it's a complete 180 of a performance where it's like they're like, we have to prove that we're we're going to be fine as singles wrestlers.
Yeah. Well, it's not long after that. Chris Harris is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Harris gone. We do get them years later. For a one-off, Chris Harris returns. You get that years later. But I mean, after this, I mean, it really is it's the rise of the Cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the rise of, like you said, you get the comedic style of him with the beer drinking world championship. You get beer money. You get Cowboy James Storm as a singles. There's that brief run, probably one of the biggest what ifs in NXT history. What would have happened if James Storm would have just stayed in NXT?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a big. It's like Joe coming over and everything. Like James Storm could have been massive there and then moved to the main roster and been even more massive. Because I think the Cowboy James Storm role on the main roster in WWE then or even now with Triple H would be fantastic. Because there's not as old school as a cowboy gimmick is. We don't have that really anymore. I think it would work.
Oh, yeah. I think it would work just because there are some people who would go like different directions when they're presented with a character, where it's like you have characters there were a couple of wrestling pirates that we saw. We saw Paul Burchill, and then we had another one. I think he was one of the Rougeaus, if I remember
Oh
correctly.
yeah.
Jacques, I think, or was it the other
Yes.
one? Yeah.
I don't know. That's gonna bug me now.
I think it was Jean Pierre or something.
Yeah.
I think it was him. But it's like their two portrayals of being like pirates completely different. With James Storm, what he did was he could add the comedy to like the guys. So it's like wrestling is inherently silly. It's people wrestling around in tights. Come on now.
Yeah.
But it's like with James Storm, he could bring that comedic side, but
Yeah.
also bring that serious side.
And a
Uh,
sense of violence.
yeah, and I think no, and it's funny whenever I hear like an interview of someone saying it's like the boo boo face, where it's just like you could tell by the entrance whether somebody's winning or losing a match. And some
Yeah.
people are good at it. Some people are. Apparently, James Storms had one of the worst.
Yeah.
Like, and I didn't notice as a kid. So going back and watching it, I'm just like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
It's like just those little nuances. But with
He
James,
also has one of the best, in my opinion, the best catchphrases ever. The "sorry about your damn luck"
he
is
was a great promo too.
yeah.
I really enjoyed his promo style. I think it was always again, it was one of those hot and cold things with James Storm,
Mhm.
where it's like I feel like if you
He was
watch,
the backseat to Chris Harris for the
yeah,
longest time.
yeah, and for like I'm not gonna say he was the backseat to Bobby Roode, but
Mhm.
compared to Bobby, he was also portrayed as different, but it's like 1A and 1B.
Yeah.
And Chris Harris, not Chris Harris, James Storm essentially did the same storyline twice within TNA.
Yeah.
First with Chris Harris, second with Bobby Roode.
Yeah.
You know,
And people bought into it.
yeah,
Like,
that shows how good Chris Harris was, and James Storm. I don't know why I'm confusing the two. They're two totally different people. But with
were they? Were they though? Were they just a single star? And we,
yeah, like Chris Storm and James Harris,
Mhm.
all those all those guys
Sounds
fused
like two
together.
wrestlers.
Sounds like two wrestlers. Uh, but yeah, with James Storm, he really maximized his minutes, which is a big thing, especially when you have the television show at the time being an hour and then going to 2 hours. And I think that's what helped him in the long run. I heard just a couple of things, whether it's true or not, that's up for debate. With Chris Harris, that he wasn't a big fan of Vince Russo,
Yeah.
and Vince was writing TV at the time. Like I saw like they were teasing a Chris Harris heel turn before he left TNA
Yeah.
about Chris Harris not getting the opportunities he deserved.
Yeah.
Like I remember he had like a short feud with Christian Cage, I believe.
Hmm.
Like we said, he had the King of the Mountain spot. But again, it was one of those deals where Chris Harris, it's like, all right, you're gonna do whatever we said you'd gonna do, but then you're like, oh, that's it. It's
Yeah.
like Grant, love the catatonic finish, love that. But with James Storm, he just had a more natural progression. I feel like Chris Harris,
Yeah.
as a single star, he was just kind of thrown in there and saying, it's like, all right, sink or swim. With James Storm, it's like, we'll put you in with EOI in a storyline. Like, not saying they didn't care about it, but it's like, this is going to be something that's going to fill in the variety of her show. And James Storm showed within that program that he has a lot more variety than Chris Harris. And also, it helped that James Storm also had Jacqueline to work off of as
Yep.
well, who became his manager.
Yep. Pride of Tennessee, even though she's from Texas.
Who am I to judge?
Well, folks, that's America's Most Wanted.
Mm-hmm.
We did the thing. We did the thing.
Did the thing, went over America's Most Wanted, find the defendants guilty, but say we're all innocent from watching this team unfold because they were a great team.
They were a great team. They were a really good team. I would say for someone again watching a lot of this for the first time,
Mhm.
it made me really enjoy tag team wrestling again. Like
Mhm.
I'm a big tag team fan. I always have been. Like I'm a huge Dudley fan. Um, and I was like, man, some of these teams, I don't want to say they're bad, but gosh, they were bad early on. And I was like, they're not. And they were making people that I was like, gosh, who they're in the ring with is bad. I'm like, no, they're making them look good. And I'm like, okay.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, they were for that 5-year run that they really had, like, that was,
Definitely a cornerstone run for
yeah,
TNA. They like if they weren't a
should be
team.
inducted as Hall of Famers.
Absolutely, like without a question. Like it's one of those teams where if you remember them, it's like, oh yeah, I remember liking them. But unfortunately, during that time with TNA, it's just other teams just kind of broke out, like
Yeah.
including Beer Money,
I think
including
that they
like
get overshadowed a lot by Beer Money.
yeah, absolutely, because Beer Money was more of the character based
And they were
team.
already on a larger, I mean, they were on TV by that point.
Yeah,
They were being seen more. I mean, a lot of what they were I mean, the growth and the development was in that time frame with those weekly pay-per-views. And
mhm.
not everybody was buying those weekly pay-per-views.
Yeah, and with Beer Money, they already had set characters for Bobby Roode and James
Mhm.
Storm. With AMW, AMW was the character
Yeah.
from that. And sometimes that works for teams, but like we said, once you split off, you kind of need to find something else that differentiates from that tag team. And some people have found it, like James Storm, and other people, unfortunately, kind of can't find themselves after the fact, like Chris Harris.
Yeah. Well, before we get out of here, folks, let's plug some stuff. Richie, let them know what you got going on. Let them know where you can find you.
Let's see. Below is the @ at Retold Richie Mars on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. New TikTok content every day. We are a little bit over 12,000 followers. So
That's insane for me. Like,
yeah.
I can't even imagine being that many
So
followers.
I'm thankful to be a part of the creator program. Just finished off the first month. And hopefully more content down the line. We have Wrestling Retold and Relived with Richie Mars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. It's a podcast that comes. Been on a little bit of hiatus just because WrestleMania has been just so crazy. Had to do a lot of cleanup work to see like how the backlash, no pun intended, for that is gone. But now back to regular scheduled program and going on for newer episodes. And of course, Bound for Impact, Dad Had and I, we have a lot of things cooking up. I'm very thankful for this show just because TNA was a big part of my fandom growing up, and just watching it unfold and just reliving it is just like sometimes you forget like how good things are until you look back, and then like sometimes they hold up, sometimes they don't. And when it comes to America's Most Wanted, they most certainly hold up.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited that you want to do this project with me. I wanted to find something for me and you to do because, like, when I first started seeing your content, like, I was like, "Ooh, he and I we would bounce off each other very, very well."
Yeah.
So I was excited to be able to do something with you, and this has been a blast because I mean, like I said, a lot of this is new for me for the first time. So since you kind of lived through it, it's a good it's kind of like what Mike and I are doing, here on the channel. We're doing not just wrestling content. We're going to start broadening horizon because we all have different interests, from reality TV show to music content to video gaming to a little bit of everything. So there's non-wrestling content coming to the channel, but
just let me know when you cover Kagayan. I'll sit in for that one.
like, it's funny, like, because I'm also watching, like, I'm rewatching those first seasons of Survivor, or that first season of Survivor with Mike, but I'm also watching the current one that's going on, and it's so, again, two totally different ends of the spectrum gameplay wise. And
because like I remember watching the first Survivor like as a kid, and I liked the winner because his name was also Richard, so again, connection but the terms of alliances have grown so dramatically
because of that show,
because of that like one singular show. And as you go on with Survivor, like it just evolves crazy. It's like I'm a fan of reality TV too. So Survivor, The Challenge, just got into Big Brother, so I've been watching that on and off.
The thing about Big Brother for me, and this is a random tangent, is it's so many episodes because like they do like basically in the heyday is like there was a Sunday show, like a Tuesday show, the live Thursday show. Like there you get three. So like when you like it's on Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus, if you would like to sponsor us, we would gladly take your money.
After being part of the creator program, I'm like everything's money now. I'll give me your money.
Yeah, I don't know that life yet. So follow Richie, follow us.
Yeah. Yes, please do.
Hit that like and subscribe button. But like there's just I started kind of like with Survivor. Like I started, even though I had seen several seasons, especially like the mid to later ones of Big Brother, like I was just like, there's just too many damn episodes.
Not only that, with Big Brother, it's like you have the live feed too, and then it's like the live feed like is different from the context that's on the live, like the taped show that's 3 days a week. That's why it's like Survivor, The Challenge. It's easy, it's digestible.
Yeah.
I think The Challenge used to be like a half hour to an hour, and now it's an hour and 30. They're just making these longer and longer. You know what I mean? And it's just like it's one of those things where like I'm curious to see what happens. But definitely when you guys get to the golden age of Survivor, which I think you guys are a couple of seasons away from. And
it's like after All Stars, like,
and then it just like goes for like a great like 10.
Like All Stars to me is like cool. This wraps up that first section, and you get, and All Stars really is like to me the best of that first little wave. But then after that, it's when it's like cool. every person is there to play and every person is ready. Like
Yeah,
everybody's gonna stab everybody in the back like that. Yeah, golden
yeah,
age of
yeah.
Survivor.
Plus the themes too, like brain, brawn, and beauty. You have
Yeah.
blood versus water. You have
Oh, I forgot about Blood versus
you
Water.
have fans versus favorites, which I know got like some like were they really fans or were they just casted as fans? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you have some good like and also oh gosh, I forgot the other one with JT and Steven Token Jeans.
Yes.
Yeah, like that was also a great one because that was the first perfect game too.
Well, I blew people's mind in the chat when I first talked about it because I was like, that somebody was like, "Well, I remember Johnny Fairplay being on." I'm like, "Yes," but then also John Morrison is in a season.
Yeah, he is. He's in a David versus Goliath.
Yeah, like, and they want him back, and he won't do it. Apparently, it's like things I've read.
The thing is, it's like he like if you saw his elimination, like he got. I don't want to say he got gypped, but it's like he got blindsided in the first time ever a minority vote blindside.
Yeah,
So it's just like, and plus his screen time wasn't really
he
he
wasn't
wasn't really
featured that much.
presented. He
Yeah,
wasn't really presented as like a big deal. Like he
yeah,
was like I think among like the cast, like he was revered.
yeah,
But it's like he was the person who got sent to the jury house second.
yeah. I think so.
So it's just kind of like okay, it's like what else can you do with him on Survivor? You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm sure like, and plus he probably makes more money like just
Oh, sure.
doing like what he
Why
does.
do I want to go starve?
Yeah, you know, it's like
Yeah,
he looked great doing the whole thing too.
yeah.
Like
I was
I mean, he
surprised
looked
when I saw the
great.
casting. I was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah,
Like,
they
but that's another show here on the channel.
yeah.
But so for the next episode here, it's you say you get to pick. What are we talking about next time?
You know, we mentioned him earlier. How about we talk about Monty Brown?
Okay. Okay. We will. Who? All right. I'm gonna have my counter ready on screen to how many times can we say the word pounce?
Yeah, well, you know, it's like I feel like with Monty Brown, like we said, like there have been a lot of drop balls, and I feel like with Monty Brown, even though he wasn't like it wasn't a long career in TNA,
No.
I think for the time that he was in there,
Yeah.
like I think he definitely, no pun intended, he made an impact
Yeah.
when it came to like, all right, this guy
They
is
could
the
have
next,
developed him into something much more.
yeah, like like this guy's like the next big thing,
Yeah.
and like unfortunately that just didn't happen, and we'll get into why that was and just yeah I don't know, like we could talk about a little bit what happens in WWE because it unfortunately doesn't last as long as we would like it to due to
Yeah.
circumstances outside of his control, but like again he was just one of those guys where it's like when Impact was just kind of finding its footing, he was a guy that was breaking out, and it's much similar to like what Wardlow was in AEW to a
Yeah.
certain degree, where it's just like he got organically over just being himself, like or like a Baron Corbin when Baron Corbin was in NXT for the
Yeah.
first go around, where it's like he was getting organically over, and the crowd was chanting along with how many seconds the match was going.
Yeah.
So I think Monty Brown is a good like like not pivot, but it's just like he's not like what you think of when you think of the top names of TNA wrestling, but he's definitely one of the biggest what ifs when it comes to not only TNA wrestling
Yeah.
but professional wrestling overall.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey, Monty Brown, you know, the alpha male. That's what we'll
Mhm.
talk about next time. As always, Richie Mars, my buddy. I am your friendly neighborhood dad hat wearing wrestling fan at Dad Hat Wrestling, World Championship Wreckage, everything on all social medias. Please give us a like and subscribe. Please comment, engage. We love to hear from you. But we'll see you next time to cover Monty Brown. Bye, guys.